With Portal getting a surprise release on Switch, I've been thinking a lot about how we need more puzzle games with weighted companion cubes. Apparently, the good people over at Secret Item Games heard my call, because here we have a brand new console port of Hourglass, a Portal-esque puzzler set in the far reaches of Egypt. And while it doesn't have a psychotic computer taunting us the whole time, Hourglass does have a lot of clever challenges and a companion cube that is just as friendly as the one found in that other game. I just hope you don't mind me tracking sand all over the place, because this is my review of Hourglass. This is the story of Iwa, the adventurous daughter of a famous archaeologist who has gone missing after an expedition to Egypt. Fearing the worst, the young woman decides to trace her father's footsteps in hopes of rescuing him, or at the very least find out what happened. This leads her to an isolated part of the desert, far away from anything resembling modern civilization. It's here where she discovers a series of ancient pyramids with powers and technologies far advanced from anything she could have possibly imagined. Instead of finding portals, Iwa discovers a mysterious doorway that takes her into a different dimension where everything has a bluish tint. What we quickly realize is that this door is actually recording your movements for a few seconds, something that will play back for you once it's done recording. This will prove handy in a lot of ways, especially when you need a second pair of hands to move a weighted companion cube or open up a door. This is incredibly useful, but it's also limited, giving our hero only a few seconds to record and play back the scene before it disappears for good. The puzzles built around these doorways start out simple enough, having you carry a cube here or record yourself standing over there. You'll run into a lot of situations where our hero will need to perfectly time a recording. That way there's enough time to run to a platform or pick something up. Of course, like any good puzzle game, these challenges become a lot more complicated and ambitious, eventually sending you into much larger puzzles where you'll need to overcome a series of problems in order to pick up the item that you're after. What's cool is how the game adds to the formula from one pyramid to the next. After learning the basics of that otherworldly door, you'll pick up an hourglass that'll allow our hero to record at just the push of a button. This opens up the puzzles in big ways, as will the introduction of portal pads that you can manually place around the levels. You'll start to look at the space around you differently, forcing the young adventurer to use her newfound powers in a lot of unique ways that aren't always obvious at first. Now, what I really like about Hourglass is how it never throws you in the deep end, instead choosing to ramp up the difficulty slowly and fairly. The levels are split up into a series of pyramids, but even before you get there, we're introduced to a new power and then shown how it works through multiple smaller puzzles. It's these paths to the pyramid where you'll get acquainted with the types of puzzles you can expect to see, which really helps when it comes to finally getting to the main course. Inside the pyramids are 5 elaborate puzzles each, with multiple parts that will put your mind and reflexes to the test. This challenges you just enough to make sure you fully wrap your head around the newfound powers, and then you move on, giving us a tightly paced adventure that doesn't overstay its welcome. As a puzzle game, Hourglass is great. Even at its most difficult, I don't have too many problems with the way the puzzles are laid out. However, the game does fall short of Portal and its clones in one important way, and that's the story. You see, most of the plot points happen late in the game, after you spend hours doing little more than solving puzzles. It's not that I necessarily needed a rogue AI taunting me the whole time, but it would have been nice to see more of the story beats and cool discoveries sprinkled into the earlier parts of the game. As it is, the game waits until the final act before overloading you with story. And that strategy just ends up overwhelming what had been a simple adventure up until that point. The game would have benefited from having somebody on the phone with Iwa, or maybe the adventurer simply talking to herself. It takes so long for the story to get started, and I found it a bit jarring and out of place when it got there, even though I do feel that Hourglass ultimately has a satisfying ending. It's also worth noting that the gameplay is sluggish and not as responsive as other Portal-style games. Getting around is easy enough, but little things like picking up and placing the weighted companion cube just don't always work like they're supposed to. There were dozens of times when I only had a few seconds to pick up a cube and then place it before my recording stopped. Yet I simply couldn't do it because I fumbled with just picking up the cube. This is especially annoying because once the recording has run its course, you have to go back and re-record the actions all over again. Messing up a puzzle because of the often sluggish and unforgiving gameplay is frustrating and absolutely no fun. What this game excels at are the puzzles, which are constantly clever and evolving. These challenges are every bit as fun as what we got in Portal, and I especially love the Egyptian setting and the use of vibrant colors and interesting architecture. However, Hourglass simply isn't as memorable as other similar puzzlers, if only because it waits too long to form any kind of unique personality. But even though it covers some familiar ground and the gameplay could have used a little tightening up, this is an easy game to recommend because the puzzles are so much fun. It's not quite on the same level as Portal, but Hourglass still delivers when it counts. Fans of weighted companion cubes rejoice, because Hourglass is a brand new puzzler with more than a passing resemblance to games like Portal. Set in Egypt and full of mystery and intrigue, this rescue mission is all about recording your actions and then interacting with your past self. Confused? Well, don't be, because this clever puzzle game does an excellent job easing you into the unique gameplay mechanics, all while introducing a number of cool wrinkles along the way. Unfortunately, the game's story is largely held back until the final act, and the gameplay just isn't as tight and responsive as you would have liked, especially when you're dealing with some of the more time-sensitive puzzles. But if you can get beyond those issues, you'll discover a gorgeous adventure game with a lot of cool puzzles and an incredibly satisfying ending. Flawed or not, I want to see more games like Hourglass. Hey, thanks for watching our review. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new reviews and features almost every day. Now, here's the question I have for you. What is your favorite type of puzzle game? Do you prefer the falling blocks? Maybe something like Picross? Or maybe it's a game like Portal where you're interacting with a 3D space? There are just so many different types to choose from, so I can't wait to see what kind of puzzlers you like in the comments below. In other news, we'll be back later this week with a new episode of Nintendo Switch Online Review Crew. I'm also hard at work on reviews of Formula, Bit Racer DX, Zell, Pixel Gangsters, Quintus and the Absent Truth, and more. So much more. While you wait for that, I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.